Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, meteorologist with the National Weather Service on this 4th day of December 2020. I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, we've got the hazardous weather graphic showing red all along the Arctic coast, and that signifies blizzard warning that is out for the entire stretch of the coastline there. On the western Arctic coast, it's out until midnight tonight, after which conditions are expected to improve. And for the central and eastern coast, all the way over toward Barter Island and Kaktovik, it's out until 6 a.m. Saturday morning. And looking for winds to continue gusting at 45 to 55 miles per hour with new additional snow, enough to mix in with the snow that's already on the ground to create occasional whiteout conditions, or visibility is less than a quarter mile. And again, for the western Arctic coast, that's out until midnight tonight. And as the system pulls off to the east, take a little longer on the east side to improve, so it's out until 6 a.m. Saturday morning, at which time it'll either cancel or they'll kick it out longer. Anyway, to the south there, eastern North Slope and the northeastern Brooks Range, winter weather advisory there for gusty winds, snow-blowing snow. Visibility is at times less than half a mile there, so not as severe as the conditions out along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise, to the south, no watches, warnings, or advisories out at all. But some pretty good winds, though, are occurring over the eastern Aleutians, with a system pulling up into the western Bering Sea there, low pressure, and then a stronger low that's actually south of the eastern Aleutians there. Bringing some gusty winds anywhere from 40 to 55 miles an hour. On Alaska, for example, seeing peak wind gusts today of 50 miles per hour, while Akun Airstrip and Nikolsky both had about 50 to 51 miles an hour as well, so pretty uniform there. And the Alaska Peninsula, not as strong, cold basin gusts to about 40 miles an hour out of the east-southeast. And St. George gusts 47 miles per hour, so picking the winds up there as well. And then off to the east, over the Panhandle, you can see a couple of bands of moisture moving northward there. One that brought all the snow earlier today to the Lynn Canal, Klondike Highway on up to Skagway and Haines, where the winter weather advisory was out earlier. It's now ended with rain falling at Haines now for much of the afternoon. They picked up about 0.8 of an inch of water equivalent precipitation in the last 12 hours there. And that falling mostly as rain here over the last 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours or so. And Juneau seeing some rain, with also seeing gusts 35 miles an hour out of the east-southeast there. But that surges of warm air moving northward. The first one and the next one already coming into the southern-southeast coast, with nearly an inch of rain falling at Ketchikan in the last 12 hours, or 3/4 of an inch there. Also at, Petersburg picked up about the same amount there. So pretty good rainfall with that, and temperatures up near 50 degrees, and winds anywhere gusting 40 to 60 miles an hour, depending on your location there. With Juneau, as I mentioned, 35 miles an hour, and Ketchikan at about 46 mile an hour wind gusts there, and Cape Decision 50 miles per hour. And that'll continue actually through the weekend. Surges of moisture coming from south to north. You can see the next system there just coming onto the southern part of the chart there of the picture. That'll be rolling up late tonight and tomorrow for another push, more warm air and wind and heavy rain, heavy at times up into the Panhandle. And then yet another one on Sunday will bring gale force winds back to the coast on Sunday again, with another round of some pretty solid rainfall in the area. Otherwise, the interior, under the influence of basically Arctic high pressure, centered just about right over the interior there, with some variable clouds and areas of flurries, fog. Snowfall amounts pretty light, though, but that picks up with the system over the Arctic Ocean there, bringing the strong winds to the Arctic coast. Anywhere from 1 to 3 inches seems to have fallen in the areas there. Kind of hard to measure with all when the winds are blowing that strong. 35 to 40 mile an hour winds even over the North Slope Umiat Airfield, and then those cut off at about the Brooks Range. And then south of the mountains, you're into the light winds with a high pressure over the interior, and some areas of clearing, along with some areas of clouds, low clouds, areas of fog in the valleys. Maybe a few flurries there, as you can see, around Northway Tok, eastern Alaska Range, possibly the Copper River Basement. Nothing significant. Mostly clear skies, northerly winds gusting 35 miles an hour at Juneau. And gusty outflow winds, not blasting out as they could, but enough to keep it mostly clear over Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast. And then that low off the north coast of the Panhandle and the associated front bringing the gusty winds, rain, and warmer temperatures sliding northward there with the heaviest rainfall amounts across the interior areas from Ketchikan on up to, as I mentioned, Petersburg and into Haines, seeing some good, fairly decent rainfall amounts. And Kodiak Island, though, back to the west under ridging there over the western Gulf of Alaska, mostly clear skies there, temperatures near or below freezing at mid-afternoon, and temperatures to sit in the valley staying below zero much of the day today, as well as the Kuskokwim Valley, and of course up in the interior. Arctic Village sitting at 29 below this afternoon, with temperatures over the southern Panhandle near 50 degrees. Eastern Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, gusty winds with that system to the south, bringing a mixture of rain or snow. Not too heavy, though. Most of the heaviest precipitation still staying to the south of the area there, with some breezy conditions, rain and snow showers, or a mixture of precipitation across the southern Bering Sea all the way out to the Komodorsky Islands. But the northern Bering Sea, pretty good. Light winds, high pressure, clearing skies, maybe a few flurries there over the Seward Peninsula and up over the northwest part of the state as well. Selawik Valley, Kotzebue, maybe some light snow, but the heavier stuff up north of the Berks Range in the mountains. And again, that blizzard warning will end tonight for the western Arctic coast and continue through the night for the eastern Arctic coast. Winds gusting 50 miles an hour, snow blowing snow. Visibility is near zero at times, but much staying the same over the central and southern interior with light winds and temperatures well below zero over the interior Alaska. A little bit more of a breeze over southern Alaska on out to the North Gulf Coast. That'll keep skies clear to the coast and beyond, especially out over the southeast Bering Sea. You can see even the Pribilofs right on the edge of the clouds there. Very nice conditions along the southwest coast, ceiling visibility-wise. Maybe a few clouds for Kodiak Island. And less in the way of precipitation for the Panhandle, but the next surge keeps periods of rain, possibly heavy at times over the southern southeast coast. You can see the next low developing and pulling northward. Well, the low south of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, is not even on the chart, the low center in the front, barely on the chart. And for tomorrow, that front will push north enough to bring storm force winds, storm warnings on the south side of the Alaska Peninsula, and full gales for the Pacific side of the Fox Islands as well, but still pretty breezy over the southern southeast Bering Sea. And look for the clouds to increase for Kodiak Island, mixture precipitation with, again, the strong winds, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. No change over the interior, and wind and rain coming up to the southeast coast with much better conditions now up along the Arctic coast. That trough weakening and what's left of it's still pulling along the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, but the blizzard warning will have ended even there, and pretty good back to the west. There could be some clearing, definitely a lot lighter winds with dry conditions. And for Sunday, big warm front brings gale force winds back to the southeast coast, and probably the North Gulf Coast as well, especially into the midday and afternoon hours, with another round of increasing heavier precipitation, mostly in the form of rain over the Panhandle, mixture with some elevation, with any elevation at all, especially up to the north, but not looking for much in the way of any snowfall with this, and mixture precipitation, North Gulf Coast. It'll be mostly rain from Kodiak Island up, say, to the southern Kenai Peninsula, Seward, even Whittier looking for rain, as well as Cordova to Yakutat, with whatever makes it inland will be in the form of light snow. But look for the clouds to increase up over the eastern interior, though, but it'll stay dry, but tighter gradient means gustier winds. Delta Junction could see gusts 45 miles an hour into the Kuskokwim Valley, and quite windy with rain or snow along the Alaska Peninsula. Bering Sea pretty dry with high pressure over the Russian Far East. They're pretty much dominating the area on up to the North Slope. Lows for tonight, 25 to 30 below up over the northeast interior, and then near zero down toward the lower Yukon and Kuskokwim River Valley areas to teens out along the coast, 30s in the Aleutians, 40s under mild southerly flow for the Panhandle. Highs for tomorrow in the lower 50s, central and southern southeast coast, lower to mid-teens south central Alaska, below zero in the interior, and then teens for the Arctic coast, and upper 30s for the Aleutians, mid-30s Kodiak Island. Lows Sunday morning, 25 to 35 below central northeast interior areas, near zero along the Arctic coast, 40s for the Panhandle, That'll be followed by highs milder along the North Gulf Coast into the mid-30s, lower 40s Kodiak Island, below zero north of the Alaska Range, and then north of the Brooks Range, also staying a little above zero there, with highs anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
First line weather graphic for, let's see, Saturday morning. IFR there, central and eastern Arctic coast, and then becoming VFR from the Brooks Range. Areas of marginal VFR and IFR there over the northeast interior, the IFR over the Yukon Flats, and some marginal VFR there in the lower Kuskokwim and Yukon River Valley areas to the Kuskokwim Mountains, and then VFR along the southwest coast all the way out to the Pribilofs, IFR, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians to Atka, and then also from Kiskin and Chitka, otherwise marginal for the Aleutians, western Bering, marginal VFR, some IFR for the western part of St. Lawrence Island, and IFR mostly, especially north and south parts of the Panhandle, VFR North Gulf Coast. VFR holds for Kodiak Island, except down towards Sitkinak becomes marginal, and VFR all the way up through the interior until you get up around northern Seward Peninsula and the Kotzebue, Selawik areas. And for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, marginal VFR, some of that extending down in toward the central Brooks Range areas, but nothing getting south of the mountains. IFR, solid IFR with all the moisture coming up across the southeast coast almost to Yakutat. IFR, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. And for Sunday morning, areas of IFR there for the Yukon Flats, otherwise marginal VFR for much of the Arctic coast, on down to the Seward Peninsula and the Bering Strait, but St. Lawrence Island, northern Bering Sea, including the Pribilofs, all VFR, southern Alaska, western interior, Tanana Valley, VFR, and IFR holds for the Panhandle, and IFR, southern Kodiak Island, Fognak Island, though, into Cook Inlet, VFR. And then moisture slipping on up to the north, we've got IFR into at least southern Cook Inlet, not quite to Kenai, but covering Kachemak, Kamishak Bays, into Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, much of the Panhandle, IFR, and Kodiak Island, IFR, as well as portions of the Alaska Peninsula. VFR still out over the Pribilof Islands, and then some lower conditions, St. Lawrence Island up through the Bering Strait, marginal VFR, mainly the northern Seward Peninsula, up to about Kivalina, Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, then eastward in along and just north of the Brooks Range with VFR conditions for the Arctic coast. And for passes, Anatuvik, VFR, possible marginal VFR on the northern entrance, same forecast for Adigan, possible marginal VFR north side, northern approach, otherwise VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, good VFR tomorrow, as well as rainy, looking really well. All the Alaska Range will be VFR, windy included, as well as Isabel and Mentasta, VFR. Tanita, VFR. And for Portage, also VFR throughout the day, but Chilkoot and White with moisture sliding northward and a strong jet, a good IFR throughout the day, especially in the afternoon. And for the freezing levels, you can see the thermal gradient there building across the southeast coast with that first push of warm air coming up across the northern panhandle today, and the next one continuing tonight into tomorrow. So 2 to 8,000 feet there, otherwise at the surface North Gulf Coast, and then all the way up to the Russian coast. Icing, considerable moderate rime icing there over the panhandle, moving from south-southeast to north-northwest. And cuts off there around Yakutat, none over the interior Alaska, and just the system south of the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians, just grazing the area there with some isolated moderate possible, and then scattered areas out over the western Aleutians and Bering Sea. And for the jet stream, there's that strong 135 knot jet in across the northern Panhandle, kind of bulging northward throughout the day, and then weak upper low there over the northwest interior. High pressure northern Bering Sea and a weak low out over the western Aleutians at 9,000 feet. A weak low over the interior and 85 knot winds now just east of the Panhandle in the south. And those stronger winds over the eastern Aleutians about 50 to 55 knots with that storm to the south. 75 knot winds coming up from south to north there into the southern Panhandle as that low tracks northward just off the coast. Turbulence, moderate chop over the central southern Panhandle, southwest part of the state and from southwest Kodiak Island along the Alaska Peninsula all the way to about Adak of below about 6,000 feet. Pretty smooth central interior and improving turbulence there, becoming less of a factor for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Otherwise, not too bad over the western Aleutians, much of the Bering Sea with high pressure aloft, keeping the winds light. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
So my heart is definitely racing. I don't know about anyone else's. This is the stuff nerds dream of.
10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6,
It's gonna
5,
happen.
4, 3, 2.
That countdown you just heard? We'll get back to that in a minute. Last episode, we saw the epic launch of ICESat-2, NASA's newest state-of-the-art ice-observing satellite. But now that that's in orbit, the pressure to deliver results is on.
Between launch and, the first ground returns, took 17, 18 days or something like this. It's a time when you're quite nervous.
9 years ago, Dr. Torsten Marcus took over as the lead project scientist for ICESat-2 during a time when the mission needed a champion.
You start fighting for a mission over, for 9 years now.
So when ICESat-2 was turned on for the first time 18 days after it was launched, only then would the science team know if the whole thing had worked. And it did.
First of all, it's kind of emotional, right? Being here, ICESat-2 was development for 9-10 years. Project scientist, you live the mission, right?
If it sounds like there's a lot of noise in the background, that's because Torsten is being interviewed from a plane 1,500 feet in the air. IceBridge was tasked with the job of bridging the data between the end of ICESat's mission and the beginning of ICESat-2, about a 9-year difference.
The goal is that it would run until ICESat-2 launched and then would have overlap with ICESat-2 as well, so we can get a really long, well-calibrated time series from IceBridge.
As the deputy project scientist for Operation IceBridge, Brick works closely with Torsten to make sure the two missions are syncing up.
The timing was everything during that mission, which was a real challenge because not only do we need to...
Basically what you need to take away is getting an airplane and a satellite in space to fly over the same flight path at the same time and collect matching data is really, really hard. IceBridge was tasked with two objectives: check the accuracy of ICESat-2's data over land ice and over sea ice. They were able to lock in the land ice data fairly quickly in the mission, but the sea ice data...
It was really tricky. We waited day after day. Do we fly the sea ice? It's still on our list.
7, 6,
It's gonna
5,
happen.
4, 3, 2, 1. Mark on the overpass, 0435, 350.
Here's what just happened. A plane 1,500 feet up and a satellite 308 miles up measured the same sea ice at the same time. This moment finally linked veteran mission Operation IceBridge's data to that of its new sister mission, ICESat-2. Two projects that, until now, were separate for nearly 10 years.
It's a very satisfying feeling because you do something that is meaningful and in the bigger picture. And yeah, it's very satisfying.
Our search for knowledge doesn't end here. Grace Follow-On and ICESat-2, the two satellite missions that launched this year, will continue to bring in incredible data for the foreseeable future. The steady drumbeat of campaigns in the field goes on, but most of all, the people who look for answers will never stop searching. And from our perspective, it's pretty clear why. What is your favorite planet in the solar system?
My favorite planet is the planet Earth.
What? Earth? Really?
The Earth, obviously.
Favorite planet in the solar system? Earth, right? We live on it. It's a really important one.
Favorite planet is Earth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Why?
when you look out at the other planets, they're absolutely fascinating. They've got all sorts of interesting systems going on. They've got dust storms, But then when you're on another planet, looking back at Earth, I mean, it's just incredible.
Whenever you go in different places, it looks so different, so amazing. It's just, I love planet Earth. It's just a very special planet. This is our home.
We've seen things far beyond the solar system. But even with all that, even the amazing things we've seen, one of the most amazing is the Earth itself.
It's got to be Earth. It's got to be Earth.
It's got to be here. I like the polar regions up here, of Earth. Yeah, sorry. It's very boring.
Earth is good.
Earth is good.
We live here, it sustains our life.
I'm not going to turn my back on it.
It's got water, it's got ice, it's got vegetation. I mean, it's rich with life. And so studying Earth is a very, very rewarding career. And I think if we were on any other planet, we would be trying to get to Earth as quickly as we could.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Looking at the coastal water forecast there for the southeast coast for tomorrow. Gale force winds on the south coast, 30-35 knots. Strongest along Prince of Wales Island, with seas up to 17 feet. And then the easterly gales on the central north coast out of the east at 35 knots, and then up toward Yakutat, falling back to the northeast at 20 knots. Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, northwest, sustained 20, gale force to 35 knots, and then opposite direction there for Stevens Passage, southeast 25, gusts 45 knots, and gales for Clarence Strait, south winds 35 knots. And for Sunday, with that active warm front pushing in toward the coastline, we've got full gales for the entire stretch of the coastline there, 45 knots from the south for the south coast, with seas 24 to 26 feet. Southeast 45 knots, 25-foot seas on the north coast. Gales continue for Clarence Strait for southerlies at 35 knots. Small craft advisories for Stevens Passage, where winds will be south at 25 and south 20 for Lynn Canal. For Prince William Sound tomorrow, northwest winds 20 knots, seas 3 feet. North 20 for the Middleton Island area there with 8-foot seas. Otherwise, northeast winds for the western North Gulf Coast at 15 knots, as well as the Barren Islands with 7-foot seas. And for southern Cook Inlet and Kamishak Bay, northeast winds 30 knots with 11 to 13-foot seas. Otherwise, north of the Forelands, we're looking at 20-knot winds out of the northeast. But gales come into the picture on Sunday for southern Cook Inlet, 40 knots sustained from the northeast there, and 45 knots for Kamishak Bay with seas up to 20 feet. Small craft advisories, northern Cook Inlet, northeast 25 and 10-foot seas. For the Barren Islands and western North Gulf Coast, look for east winds at 40 knots with 15 to 18-foot seas, southeast 35 for gale warnings on the eastern Arctic coast, and small craft advisories, Prince William Sound, northeast winds 25 knots with 6-foot seas. Kodiak Island for Shelikof Strait, northeast 30 knots, 13-foot seas. East side of Kodiak Island, east at 30 with 9-foot seas. And then high-end gales kick in from Sitkinak to Castle Cape out of the east at 45 knots, 16-foot seas, with the storm warnings from Castle Cape to Cape Sarachev, looking at sustained northeast winds 55 knots, 26-foot seas. Full gales on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula with 40-knot winds out of the northeast. Bristol Bay northeast at 30 knots. And then for Sunday, we've got storm warnings in Shelikof Strait, northeast, 50 knots, 22-foot seas. Otherwise, gale warnings for the east side of Kodiak Island for winds east at 35, 45-knot winds from the east or east-northeast from Sitkinak to Cape Sarachev. And the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula, northeast at 40 knots, 17-foot seas. Bristol Bay, gale warnings, northeast, 35 knots. For the Fox Islands, south of Unalaska Island, we've got storm warnings out for tomorrow for northeast winds 55 knots, seas near 30 feet. Otherwise, northeasterlies 40 to 45 knots for the remainder of the Fox Islands there. with seas 19 to 25 foot seas. We've got gales for the AKwx area at 35 knots from the northeast, and then northwest at 30 knots for the western Aleutians. Outlook for Sunday for Shimei and Attu to about Kiska, northwest 25 knots, Samchitka Island north at 20, small craft advisories Adak and Atka, northerly winds 30 knots, and for Unmak Island north 35 knots with 18 to 22 foot seas, on Alaska Island north at 40 knots with 19 to 25 foot seas. Southwest coast, northeast winds 30 to 35 knots with a gale warning south of Nunivak Island. Gales also out for the Pribilofs, northeast 40 knots, east 30 knots St. Matthew Island. Lighter winds for St. Lawrence Island, only northeast at 20, and Norton Sound north of 15. A little breezier in Norton Sound on Sunday, north 20 there. St. Lawrence Island, small craft advisories north 30 knots. Gale warnings everywhere else. Southwest coast, northerlies 40 to 45 knots. 40 knots out of the north of the Pribilofs, northeast 35, St. Matthew Island. Brisk wind advisories central and east side tomorrow, all coming down though throughout the day. For the west winds, 25 to 30 knots, 20 knot winds on the west side of the coast, and Kotzebue Sound, or Kotzebue and the northwest coast west of 15. 20 knot winds from Wales to Cape Beaufort out of the north on Sunday with small craft or brisk wind advisories. Northwest 25 on the western Arctic coast, 15 knots central coast, west winds at 20 on the east side. For tonight, blizzard warning continues till midnight for the western Arctic coast, till 6 a.m. Saturday morning for the east side for whiteout conditions with the 50-mile-an-hour wind gust, but lighter winds below zero over the interior, dry conditions, a little breezy along the North Gulf Coast. Rain and wind, couple of rounds come up, one tomorrow and the next one on Sunday with that big storm south of the Alaska Peninsula, pushing warmer temperatures into southern Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.